Welcome back to Channel Zero X. This is Michael Anton, co-creator of the upcoming Indiegogo graphic novel Mortal Worlds. Today I want to speak to you about the possibility, what if there was never any more Star Wars after Episode 9? Maybe a horrifying prospect to some of you. Maybe not so much to others. Maybe some of us feel that Star Wars has gone on for as long as it can and has reached its expiry date. Some people may reckon that happened quite a lot earlier. Some people may even consider the prequels to have been the final nail in the coffin, but in retrospect, a lot of people seem to have redacted that and decided that it is the Last Jedi that was really the final bow for this particular property, as far as movies are concerned. Would it be such a terrible thing if the forthcoming Episode 9 was did so badly at the box office due to fan boycotts that Disney decided this is no longer a franchise we want to be a part of or to continue to develop because there is so much ill will and there is just not enough profit to outlay ratio. It is simply too expensive to make. It is not worth our time and effort because this seems to have been something that is being mismanaged. We imagine if they were to admit it, we've mismanaged the property to such a degree that we're now going to look to other properties to develop with our money because Star Wars is it's a dead horse. It is past its use by date. Now, it is not that I don't want to see further Star Wars films. I'm sure most of us do, but in the right hands. But the question is, do we trust Disney to ever put it back into the right hands? Is Disney actually endemically wrong intrinsically wrong for Star Wars? The Force Awakens seemed to have pleased some people, but not enough to the degree that people thought this was something that had the potential we'd hoped for. Now, if Disney decided to sell on Star Wars to anybody else, regardless of what the cost of that package would be, perhaps somebody could actually do something better with it, something more creative, something that rekindled the spirit of heroism and excitement and adventure that we'd come to expect from this property, well, at least as far as the original trilogy was concerned. Now, I don't think that it is probably ever possible to rekindle that excitement, not only because most of us who are avid fans grew up with the property, and now that we are fully into adulthood, middle-aged, what have you, that it is now something that is more of a nostalgia piece to us rather than something that can be an ongoing part of our lives with any real impact on us. I would like to see Star Wars put into the hands of perhaps somebody like Steven Spielberg or James Cameron. Even though I was not a fan of Avatar, I would imagine that some directors like these, possibly even Guillermo del Toro, although I haven't been hugely enamored of some of his projects, but he seems to have a kind of a good grasp on pulp sensibility, the kind of thing we might, and a great visual style, something that could lend itself well to bringing this property back into something which is embraced by most of us. I don't think this is something that Disney is ever going to consider. They have their own pot of creatives who they would probably consider to be worthy successors to Rian Johnson and to Kathleen Kennedy. But I don't think that they really are interested in doing anything that the fans would ever really want. They have their own agenda. They have, as we probably have largely discussed, a political agenda which is not in keeping with the spirit of Star Wars. In fact, it is probably quite antithetical to it because Star Wars is meant to be all about escapism, all about capturing a different world which seems to be composed of archetypes, heroic archetypes and villainous ones, which go into mythological folklore, and these things are part of the human narrative, which exists kind of beyond the frame of current geopolitics and the kind of clash between the MAGA supporters and political correct SJW crusaders. But let's say even if there was maybe a tone down in the political demagoguery, which we've seen so recently in The Last Jedi. I haven't seen Solo, but I was disinclined to see it. It would appear like most of us were, because of how disappointed I was in where Last Jedi took us, leaving us left on a stranded desert island by the end of the film, where we had no particular interest for what the prospects were for the surviving heroes or for the First Order. Now, if there were to be no more Star Wars, let's just think about it for a second, because while it may be almost a shocking notion to some of us, it would perhaps over time the property probably would be fondly remembered more than thought of as an ill-conceived continuation, kind of a never-ending kind of declining quality. Kind of decreasing circles, and we don't really have much of an idea of where Star Wars could go, which could bring it back into our favor, because nobody really seems to like the characters that they have created to take over from Luke, Leia, and Han. We are left with ancillary characters like favorites, but still kind of ancillary, all the rest, like C-3PO, R2-D2, Chewbacca. These are not really characters strong enough in themselves to merit justifying the continuation of Star Wars, alongside the likes of Rey, Finn, Kylo, or Krylo, as some of us have come to call him, Finn. Now, it is not because we are in any way kind of bigoted that we have not responded to these characters. We wanted to love these characters. We thought they had some degree of potential right from the get-go. Finn was an enigma, a stormtrooper who had actually broken his conditioning and become more of a kind of transcendent, transcending his circumstances to, grasp the nettle of personal responsibility when he realizes that the missions that he is dispatched to are not for the good of the galaxy. They're the good for a select few who wish to control it. His accession to Rose Tico's demands for him to be involved in kind of more political ideology doesn't seem to have worked. We don't really know where they were hoping to take this, but it seems to be kind of a narrative dead end. Where could Star Wars go with any particular character that has survived? There doesn't seem to be really anyone that we have any inclination to follow. This character, DJ, was someone that was presented as someone who we should be kind of fascinated by his mystery and which side is he on and what is he capable of. That was something that led to nowhere really, other than just he'll just go where the money is, but he is certainly in no way has the appeal of even a Boba Fett small enough time screen as he had. Possibly DJ actually had more time altogether than Boba Fett did in the entire trilogy, original trilogy anyway. These are not characters who lend themselves to a saga. They are more kind of like experimental one-offs, knockoffs in some way, inferior knockoffs that did not have any kind of plan put forward. The execution certainly did not have any kind of prospect to be relevant to what we knew of before, because they in no way really remark on previous events in a way that impacted them from the original trilogy. They say there were stories, to quote Ray, but nobody really seems to kind of like lend much credence to those old stories in a way that has shaped their own destinies, their own hopes for the galaxy. So if we put a closure on this, would that be actual closure for the trilogy? If we said, okay, whatever happens in Episode 9, it reaches its conclusion. These characters end up doing their own thing and have their stories wrapped up in a nice little bow, wherever that may be. Maybe some people will be happy with that. Maybe Episode 9 will be the episode where people say, this is what we were looking for. For God's sake, thank you, Disney, at last. And thank you, JJ. You've come through. You've answered the mysteries in a way that has been thrilling to us, and has given us some resolution for what went before with the kind of seemingly empty mystery box of The Force Awakens, and the disappointing circular developments of Last Jedi, where there didn't seem to be any kind of prospect of resolution. It was just meh. Well, that's the end of it. Where do they go from here? Now, don't mistake this video for trying to propose that Star Wars should no longer be made. I'm not saying that. I'm saying what if it's a possibility, because there's also, of course, the possibility, if not the probability, that this franchise could only be tarnished further through further development, further intervention. The creation of this trilogy seems to be no longer on the cards. Let's hope not with Rian Johnson, but maybe they're developing something further down the line which will consider to be a worthy successor to the adventures of Rey et al. I don't know and have never seen any kind of mooting from Disney that there is anything of interest to them which could bring out of themselves a worthy successor to the original trilogy. They seem to have gotten to a stumbling block. They don't know what to do with it, but they spent all that money, the $4 billion bought from George Lucas. If they sold it back to George Lucas, I don't think he'd really take it back. But let's say even if they managed to do that, even if they decided, okay, what if we sell it back to George for a cut rate price? Could George be maybe an executive producer for doing something worthy of our attention again? Would he implement his original ideas? Does he have any further ideas? Does he have an interest in Star Wars at all in that way? I don't know. I don't think any of us really do. But if George were to come possession of Star Wars, I guess that's quite possibly the only thing that would bring excitement back to the fan base again, which is a shame. Because I think, in my opinion, George Lucas did run out of ideas. The prequels seem to indicate that he is no longer the kind of the filmmaker we once took him for, and he is no longer able to listen to other people's input to the degree that the story can take shape in a way that we can respond to anymore. I think that he's moved on from that kind of thing. So I think that it's quite possible that Star Wars has, it has dipped to the point where it is not so much even an irrelevance now. I don't think Star Wars will ever be irrelevant, but it will be the films before Disney that most people will look on with any fondness. Prequels, not so sure, but some people seem to, make a lot of noise about how much they love them. So let's give them that. But let's maybe leave it there, because if Star Wars was to move on and to explore new parts of the galaxy, new faces, as I think Rian Johnson originally mooted, it could work out wonderfully, but where has ever there been any indication that really is going to happen? I don't think any of us have seen any sign of that, and let's just hope that they don't drive this property completely over the cliff with Episode 9, although I guess most of us probably consider that's already happened. That ship has sailed. Let's see where it goes. Please leave me your feedback. I hope you enjoyed this little look at my theory about what could happen in the future with Star Wars, and maybe maybe it has come to its end, its own logical conclusion. Okay, thank you very much. Take care. I will be doing another Star Wars video very soon, and please leave me any feedback you like. Tell me whether this is crazy talk, or whether you agree, or have your own theories about this. All the best. Take care. Catch you soon.